Welcome to the Diversity Pivot Podcast. This season, we are talking with leaders inside organizations focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're talking with them about best practices and proven tools for positive change. We are also sharing vignettes from our new book, Allyship in Action, to help leaders take real, tangible action on DEI right away. This work is important because all humans need to feel seen, heard, and belonging in the workplace. Hello, allies. We've been digging in a little mini series on our new book about allyship in action. And I've invited you to come alongside your own ally journey. If you're asking the question, how do I continue to show up? How do I show people that I really want to be one of the good people that they can trust and that I really do care about inclusion? It's just, sometimes we don't know what to say or do. And then we're silent. And silence is compliance. Silence is the enemy. Silence is the status quo, which is the opposite of what we're looking for. Because if we want diversity, we got to be willing to do things a bit differently. So that was why we decided to write Allyship in Action. And we wanted to give everybody just some quick tips and a preview of that content. So I encourage you to follow along. Again, allyship is a choose your own adventure, so it's not a step-by-step approach. But if you haven't dialed into your why that we helped guide you through in the last episode, go back. It's 10 minutes. It's worth a listen to really think about why this conversation, why inclusion is important to you. Because we've got to stay committed long-term to be allies. It's taking intentional, consistent actions over time that really separates us as true allies. And of course, that's always in the eye of the beholder. It's never a self-proclamation. But the other skill set early on in the journey that I think is critically important and a huge differentiator for inclusive leaders in the workplace and also inclusive humans in the personal space is what we call empathy. And if you're familiar with Brene Brown's work, she is the expert on this topic. And while we've learned a tremendous amount by following her work, I highly encourage listeners, if you haven't checked out her podcasts or her books and her website, lots of great content there. But in kind of looking at empathy through the inclusion lens is what I'd offer today. It's thinking about empathy as not, I'm walking around in your shoes. A lot of times people say that. Well, it's like putting myself in your shoes. I've always struggled with that because I wear a 9.5 women's wide shoe. I have never met someone that I can wear their shoes or they can wear my shoes, a very unique size. And I don't know what it's like to walk around in your shoes. Like, I never will fully understand that. And as an ally, I think that's vital importance to know I am not the other person. I don't know what it's like to be you. I don't know what it's like to walk around in black skin if I'm white, or as a woman if I'm a man, or as someone that's in the LGBTQ plus community if I am straight or cisgender, or to somebody that has a disability if I am fully abled. And we're not asking you to know what it's like as an ally. We're asking you to be curious to try to understand what it's like. And there's a huge difference in that language. And some of the lenses we take in the book is around perspective taking, offering that instead of putting yourself in someone's shoes, meaning if someone else has a different perspective than me, what might that be? Being curious about, their perspective seems different. I want to know more about that, right? Instead of being afraid of it. And this happens whether it's political polarization or your values. Our values are very much our moral compass through life. And if someone demonstrates their values aren't different than us, that convergence can cause a lot of friction. And some of that's not resolved, right? And we're not asking for full resolution because so much of the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation is we're going to have different lenses. We're going to have conflict because of those differences. But instead of judging folks based on their differences, it's about empathizing and appreciating Their perspective is different than mine, and that is okay. And empathy is not the same as sympathy. So I had a former leader that would say, "Bless your heart, you poor thing," when I'd have something hard happen. And a lot of times with diversity and inclusion, people have hard things happen to them. Microaggressions, blatant discrimination, prejudice, stereotype threat. All of these things are very real experiences that happen on a daily basis just because of someone's identity that they're not able to change, nor do they want to. These adverse circumstances need to be met with empathy, not sympathy. Not "bless your heart, oh, you poor thing, I'm so sorry." No one wants that. Allyship isn't rescue caping. It's not saviorism. It's, I'm going to jump in this with you, and I'm going to try to feel that pain. Right? I'm going to try to fully absorb and understand the experience that you're going through, even though I will never fully understand it, right? So I want to try to. And instead of saying, "I feel sorry for you," or "bless your heart," an ally might say, "That's hard. I'm so glad you shared that with me. I can only imagine. Would it be helpful to talk about this? Could I be a support for you? What does your schedule look like next week? Would you like to go for a walk, or would you like to have dinner? Could I bring you over something?" And so when people are going through, whether they're experiencing a loss, a tragedy, a microaggression, a personal threat, that it's important they feel supported, that they don't feel alone, because one of the most isolating human experiences is the fear of being alone. We are a social species. We're meant to survive together. So helping someone feel seen, helping someone feel heard, helping someone feel belong through the lens of empathy can be so powerful and often underestimated. You don't have to have the answers. It's about listening to learn and embracing the paradox. A lot of what we write about in Allyship in Action is the tension of seemingly opposite things. Someone could be a good person, for example, and say something really problematic. Someone could also be a friend of yours and have totally different religious or political beliefs. Sometimes those feel opposite, like we should just cancel people, cancel culture, right? They don't agree, therefore they're the other. Well, there's so much yes and to this conversation, so much nuance if we just embrace the ambiguous parts of it, the gray spaces, instead of making this black, white, right or wrong. So we invite you to stay on your ally journey. We're doing a full mini series on the topics in Allyship in Action. And if you haven't pre-ordered your copy yet, you can do that on Amazon. Allyship in Action, 10 Strategies to Live Inclusively. And you're going to notice that this isn't a corporate leadership book. This isn't a self-help book. It's a bit of a blend of both. We don't think there's an on or off switch to allyship. It doesn't just happen at the workplace. It doesn't just happen at home. It happens in all spaces. And it takes real action. So what we're looking for is folks that are willing to say things that are hard, that are willing to do things even when it feels very difficult, when you're scared, and addressing those fears, right? And leveraging the tools of empathy. So we hope we've given you some ideas on how to show up empathetic. Not only do we have the book Allyship in Action, but we also have a companion activity guide. So if you're like me, I'm a caregiver of little girls, and I'm struggling with how to talk about inclusion on a regular basis with them. And so I found these activities incredibly helpful. We actually hired an instructional designer to go through and make them make sense, because they're ad hoc activities we'd heard about, we'd created ourselves, or some of our thought partners had shared with us. So we're very fortunate. We have a full set of tools as well that you can also purchase on Amazon. If you're interested in bulk copies or want to buy packages of the content, just go ahead and go to nextpivotpoint.com. You can find all the information there and contact us directly. Thank you so much for continuing to show up as an ally. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Allies are necessary for positive change. If you are on the journey to becoming an ally, we invite you to participate in our brand new Lead Like an Ally online program, or get a copy of our new book, Allyship in Action, available on Amazon. Both are helpful tools that meet leaders where they're at and help provide tools for professional and personal settings. Head over to nextpivotpoint.com to get started today.